What's going on, everyone? So the Toronto Raptors are an absolute mess this year. They don't really have structure, right? I mean, they're a team that has a bunch of like 6'8" to 7 foot guys or 6'10" guys, but they don't really have like definitive guys. Like Fred VanVleet is not really like a great point guard. He's almost more of like a combo guard, like an undersized combo guard. Gary Trent is young, who can light it up in a hurry, but even he, like, the role's kind of clunky. You got kind of Pascal Siakam as, like, your point forward. And in certain circumstances, it can work, right? I mean, like, Luka is technically a point forward playing point guard. You know, LeBron's been a point forward his whole career. I mean, even Denver runs through Joker, right? But still, it's just this team is clunky. They don't really have the firepower. They're not that good defensively, even though they have all these sizable wings. And there's a lot of questions of what they should do. Right now, they currently sit 16-23. They are way out of the play-in and definitely a playoff spot. And I don't see them catching back up. They're number 6 in the overall tank race, but I don't think they're bad enough to have a chance on like a Victor Wembanyama or something like that unless they just blow things up. And there's a real argument for that, right? Like OG is having a really good season, but do you trade him? Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent are expiring contracts. They're going to leave this season. You're not going to get a ton for them, but I think you may want to take a look at trading them and just unloading and getting something for them and start putting in place a plan to maybe build a team for the future. This team just is overachieving year in and year out. And it's like they keep talking about how they have this plan and that, you know, they have this vision of what this team could be, and it just doesn't work, right? When you look at all the elite teams, Boston, Milwaukee, you know, the Warriors, like all of these teams, they all have structure, right? Like they all have a definitive clear-cut roles for every guy. They all have position-level guys. And Toronto's trying to do the positionless basketball, but they don't have a bunch of, like, superstar positionless guys, right? Like, maybe this is a team that could work one day in the future as, like, talent level increases, guys get more fundamentally sound, and shooting becomes more, prevalent as time goes on. But right now, like, they don't have any like elite 3-point shooters. And again, they're not great defensively. This team doesn't really mesh, and it's just they can't score and keep up with other teams, and they're not that good defensively to where they could shut teams down. And so I don't see Toronto working the way that they are currently built. You have Scotty Barnes. He's your face, your star, right? I think you take Gary Trent Jr. I think you take Fred VanVleet, and you take them and you unload them in some sort of deal, whatever. Get something for them because they're probably leaving at the end of the season. You're not going to re-sign both of these guys, if either of them. I don't think they're going to re-sign either of them. And you could probably get something from someone. I mean, even a team like the Lakers, there have been links and reports of like maybe Toronto and the Lakers, like the Lakers getting like Otto Porter Jr., Gary Trent, and Fred VanVleet for a first-round pick and like Russ or something, right? Now, obviously, you're not keeping Russ just to buy him out. It's just to get assets, or a Boucher, right? Something like that. And then you unload those guys to get assets, right? Better to get something than just losing them for nothing. But maybe another team would take a flyer on Gary Trent. He's still really young, 23 years old. Fred VanVleet, he's had good seasons, but he's kind of fallen off this year. He's struggling a bit at times, but maybe in a new change of scenery, a new environment, maybe a team would take a chance on him. You're not going to get a farm level trade, right? Because again, they are expiring deals and they're not that good. Like Gary Trent, I think has value because he's 23 years old. But even he is kind of limited at times, but still the potential and growth could be a positive for some teams, especially some young teams that maybe, they're willing to give a pick maybe later on down the road or whatever. But regardless, I just don't see a scenario where the Raptors are able to pull something off. Like, I don't think Kevin Durant's going to Toronto, right? Like, if they make a trade, because they're not going to trade Scotty Barnes. So I don't see that working. You unload these two guys, you get something, you get some assets, and you start rebuilding or retooling, right? You got OG Anunoby, you got Pascal Siakam. I think you look to trade Pascal Siakam. I think outside of Scotty Barnes, obviously, and maybe OG, Pascal Siakam is the most likely to be traded and would yield the biggest return in value. And I think that he being 28, which again isn't old, but compared to OG, who's 25 and has the upside, and Scotty Barnes, who, second year, right? I think he's the guy that you could get a lot of value for and get a real return and package for. And you unload him, and now you build around OG and Scotty Barnes and actually start putting a team in place. Maybe you could get a young, center, or a young, shooting guard or something like that that makes sense, that could fit, right? Like maybe a team like, I don't know, like maybe the Suns would give you like Ayton and Cam Johnson or something for Pascal Siakam, and maybe Gary Trent or something, right? You kind of work out some sort of deal. I'm just throwing out names right now, right? I'm not saying that would absolutely happen, but let's say that did happen. Well, now you got Scotty Barnes, you got Ayton, you got OG Anunoby, and you got Cam Johnson. Like, now you got a good structure, a good core, a good amount of players and pieces that you could now start building around and actually start piecing together a real team. Because this team, as currently constructed, is not going to work. And I really do think Pascal Siakam has a lot of value that teams would look at and go, man, this is a guy. And he's having a great season, right? Him and OG have been like the two like real bright spots this season for this team. And I think he is the guy that you could justify trading. OG is 3 years younger, and he's kind of coming into his own. So keep him. You go and you get, you're not going to trade Scotty Barnes. And he's the guy that is the face and likely going to be the guy for this franchise going forward. And then Pascal Siakam, he's the odd man out. You trade him, you go get some real value. Otherwise, if you want to keep Pascal Siakam, which I don't think it would be the end of the world. I mean, again, he's still only 28. Then, you look to trade OG Anunoby. And I just think you're better off keeping OG, because I just think he's, one, having a really solid year as basically, the third option. And on top of that, I think he's a guy that is only going to continue to improve and get better. Not that Pascal Siakam can't, but I think you kind of know what Siakam is. And I think that you would get more value from a win now team for Pascal Siakam. And I think that that's the move you make, right? Like, I think a lot of teams would line up to go get Pascal, and you could get some really nice pieces to come and kind of plug and play next to Scotty Barnes and OG. But if you want to trade OG, that's not a bad move. You might get a better like asset-driven package for OG than you would Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam. But I still think that OG is the guy you keep around, just because of the age, the youth, the how every year he just seems to kind of be improving and getting better over time. But he might be the one that teams value the most. So maybe, like I said, he gets you the most asset-driven package, or maybe yields like the most solid return, maybe. That could be a possibility, just because teams will be looking at it as like, he's already an 18-point-a-game guy. He's 25 years old, 3-and-D, sizable wing that can play multiple positions, guard multiple positions. Like, they really could see him as a valuable asset. And I think Toronto has a lot of really nice tradable pieces and should really start looking into being sellers, because you're not winning anything. You're not. And in the last few years, you just keep disappointing. This year, you're super dysfunctional. All of your guys are basically free agents. And are you really going to re-sign everybody on this team and max everybody out for a team that can't even make the play-in? It doesn't make any sense if you're the Raptors. So might as well start flipping these guys into assets and recouping as many assets as you can. Even if you don't get the yield that you would ideally want, it's better than just losing guys. Right? Like, even if you get like a heavily protected first, like, again, just bringing up the Lakers because that's a team that's been linked to Toronto on several occasions for a trade. But like, let's say you do Boucher, Gary Trent, and Fred VanVleet, right, for Russell Westbrook, and you do that deal, and you get a protected first. That's still something good, right? That's still better than just losing them, and you're not going to re-sign them. Teams know you're not going to re-sign them. And you unload those guys, and then you go take Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby, and you go get the real deal and the real return, right? Get the scrap trade that you can for the guys that are leaving. do your due diligence. I'm not saying just go and just, okay, well, let's just give it to the Lakers. No, I'm saying, like, do your due diligence. But I just don't see a lot of teams lining up to trade the farm for Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet. Like, I just don't see it. But maybe a team comes on the horizon. Maybe a team, is in panic mode and is like, hey, we could use another scorer off the bench, whatever. That could absolutely be a possibility. But if not, then go find a piece, go find a trade, whether it's Lakers or somebody else. Get some, the scrap trade in that, and then move OG or move Pascal Siakam. Personally, my opinion is Pascal Siakam. I know Raptor fans might feel otherwise, but it's not working. It's not working with those three. And I don't think that you're going to be able to make it work soon enough to where it makes sense. And I think you got Pascal Siakam playing really good basketball right now. I think his value is going to be very high. I think there's a lot of teams, especially in the West, that are kind of desperate right now and would be willing to make a move, right? So I think you go do that. Would the Warriors trade you a nice package, a nice young package for Pascal Siakam? Possibly. Maybe you could get like a Kuminga, Wiseman, Moody, and like a first or something, just because they could use another sizable wing to add to everything. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, right? Because then you could have Dre play the 5, you could have Siakam play the 4. You have Andrew Wiggins at the 3, you got Curry and Clay. Like, that's a monster starting 5. I just think, however you slice it, I just think that it's time to blow it up if you're Toronto. I do. But those are my thoughts and opinions, and as always, I pass the question on to you. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think, it's time to blow it up? Do you think no? Keep it intact. Just let Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent go. Do you think no, like maybe trade them and do the scap trade, but keep your main 3 guys? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear them. Let me know down in the